Let me change the screen around. Let's get these guys in here, and we're going to jump right into it. Jay Wall and Jordan Marshall, welcome.
Howdy.
Howdy.
What's up?
This is going to be a lively discussion. We got a huge crowd. Jake Angulas, Justin Ridenour said. Congrats to Jake. Well done, Jake. I think he's a Northeast guy. Could be mistaken, but if he is, congrats. But yeah, we're going to get into this. We got a bunch of rules we want to discuss. We want to hear your opinions in the comments about these and your suggestions. But what do y'all think, guys? Jay, Jordan, I know this is a hot button topic the last few weeks. It's going to get a little spicy tonight. What do y'all think?
I'd hate to think it wouldn't at this point.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with fishing way up creeks potentially being illegal, or fishing way up creeks potentially being illegal?
Well, first, let's talk about the ruling today with Bass. That just happened to coincide with us having our show today. They released the ruling on the AOI and the Pickwick tournament itself with Drew and his DQ/protest and not DQ'd anymore. We can talk about that first, and that'll kind of segue into the actual rules and the rule sets. What do you think about that, Ryan?
Deal. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. I know I had seen some of the evidence that was presented. I know, kind of the distance that was being fished off of the creek and the creek. From what I've heard from, someone that was involved in the Bass process here, I don't know that there was anyone from Bass that went and investigated this. And that's, to me, like, I don't care what their finding is. Like, if Drew was able to get from wherever he launched to the lake on his own, that's great. That's awesome. We all know Drew is very experienced, a paddler in moving water, traversing things, whatnot. That's awesome. I think you have to have an independent third party. I don't think you should go based off of the protesters' words or videos, and you shouldn't go off the defendant's words or videos. I've watched enough Law and Order to know the defendant is not the person that investigates their own trial. Like, that's not how that shit works. Like, you have to have a third party independent person. To me, that was kind of the biggest ball drop, if you will. Ball drop. Yeah, that was it.
Drop their balls.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go around the horn there. Jay, what do you think?
Well, I mean, from what I read, it sounds like he was fishing in what was legal water. And that's cool. That's fine. Kudos to him. We all know Drew fishes his style, and he made the rules work for him, and he stayed in legal water. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Congratulations to him. I think what it's going to force the hand is, just because it was an issue, obviously, or people protested it and it became a thing. I think Drew even acknowledged in his video that there's some gray area. There's some wording, there's some things that need clarified, and it could come down to these tournament directors having to look at where their boundaries are, where their launch locations are, tighten it up or clarify, make things so that there's not a question. People shouldn't have a question about what's legal and what's not. Let's make it clear. And that way, when you throw your money down, we're all under the same assumptions, and we roll the ball out and let's go. That's all. That's all I really think about Drew's situation.
Jordan, you got anything to say about that?
So, kind of Jay hit one of my points is, as long as everybody knows exactly what is clear, black and white, no gray area, that's my biggest thing. And, I've talked to a bunch of, kind of river guys that, get into this, and, we can get into that with the rules later. Cause I got messages on messages when I was going on here to make sure I got, kind of the points of some of the guys that I'm friends with. But, even after the event, there was another angler that wasn't even Drew that posted a video, of the recap from Pickwick. And, in another group text, guys were like, man, why would somebody post a video like that? That doesn't seem legal to me. I wouldn't post a video like that. And there's so much gray area that some people were posting videos showing off, and other guys are going, how in the world are they posting that and getting away with it? So there's such a wide, vast interpretation of the rules we have, whether it's, there's a set, list of boundaries, and we have a map and go through every creek and, put a boundary at, such and such bridge and such power line, everything else. I mean, there's got to be something where there can't be different interpretations of the rules that we have. And that's basically, what it boils down to. There's, no matter where you go and play football, the rules are always the same. There's sidelines and end zones, and we got to figure out what our sidelines and end zones are, except it's every lake and place that we go to in the country, whether we can wade everywhere we go. And, I don't care. We just have to figure out something that we can all, the vast majority of us, agree upon. Because right now you could ask 100 of us fishing a tournament and you'll probably get 80 different answers.
Yeah. I'll give you my 2 cents on it. And I talked to one of the folks that was actually at the appeals meeting, or whatever you want to call it, the appeals committee. I'm not going to mention the name here just because he kind of wants to be out of it at this point. But he said that basically this is a person that protested. They invited one of the people that protested the violation to the appeals process. So the protester could make a statement. Apparently Drew could, then Bass could make their case, and then the appeals committee takes that, makes their decision. And per the protester, he said if he was on the appeals committee based on the case that they were given, he would have let it slide. And that's from the protester.
From what I understand from the committee member, it was pretty much, here's, let's say, 6 pictures and videos from the protester. Drew went and basically rebutted with 6 pictures and videos in those exact question spots, and that was it. There still wasn't there. I mean, nobody ran from the from the lake to the launch, which was the entire question in the first place, right? Like, that's the part that confuses me. And to touch on the point you brought up, Marshall, about how we kind of have to make uniform rules, the video that was posted that you were referring to, in Hobie, that would have been a DQ, period. Like, you left your kayak, you touched the obstruction, done, DQ, gone. Well, Bass, in their leaving the boat portion of their rules, they still view it as their bass boat rules, where if 50% of your body isn't out of the kayak, you haven't left the kayak. You can do a lot of shit. You can get on dry land and drag your kayak around with 1 foot in it, for that matter. I mean, that's a terrible viewpoint on that ruling. So I think a lot of stuff needs to be cleaned up, and I would love to see Bass and Hobie get on the same page where there's not this disconnect and confusion, and everybody knows what's going on every big tournament that you fish.
Yeah, and the main thing I read in the rule is accessible from the main lake.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. On tournament day, there's not one of us that is accessing a piece of any section of water 15 miles from the main lake.
Right.
From the main lake.
You don't have the time to do it.
You're not going that far from the main lake. So even if it's physically, like if you could physically make it that far, from a sheer time perspective, you can't access that in a kayak from the main lake from a time perspective. So I don't know if they took that into consideration or not. But if you drive up there and drop in and float down, then obviously, yes, you can make it.
Or if you have someone else drive you up there.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see, just like some of the other things that have happened in the quote gray area, what this does for rules going forward. But anyway, that kind of leads us to the next thing, which is let's get into some of these hot button issues. I've got a list of the main ones that we seem to talk about on all the threads on the social medias.
And if we miss anything, guys, throw it in the comments. We want this to be, as interactive as possible. I'm not saying we'll be able to read every one of them, but we'll keep an eyeball out.
Yeah, and this leads right into what we just talked about with this bass situation and with what happened at the KBF Natty, to be honest, and that is boundaries.